Hi, my name is Nonima Tikela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to also talk about things that happened in that courtroom of Jadrata and things that were said by eyewitnesses that are not making sense, whether that eyewitness was inside the courtroom of Jadrata or not. Okay. So what if I told you that this entire trial can either the entire murder, mind you, this is an entire murder trial, right? What if I told you that this entire murder trial can rise or fall because of one thing only, or one simple question? It can either it rises or it fades or it falls apart, whatever happens, because the question would be, did the eyewitnesses actually identify the killers? Yebo, that question is very serious and very important. Not not the DNA, not CCTV, not fingerprints, not cell phone records placing the accused inside the house. Instead, one of the most important pillars of the state case rests on memories of people who witnessed one of South Africa's most traumatic crimes. So today we are going to strip away the headlines, separate the arguments, um, separate facts from all the arguments of the people. Our arguments, other people's arguments, it doesn't matter. And also examine exactly what the eyewitnesses said, how the defense attacked their evidence, and why the judges' eventual findings on identification could become one of the most decisive parts of this trial. Because the Sana. Yeah. Now, people who saw the attack had a lot of things to say. And weirdly, their accounts, they differ. Oh, their accounts of what they saw differ a lot. Now, on the night Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed, several people were inside the house there in Vosloorus. Okay. According to the state, two armed intruders entered the house. Those people really traumatized Zandile. If you guys remember Zandile trauma including Utumelo, when they were trying to show us they were stressed and traumatized by the entire situation. Yes. Now, the people that were present when all of this was happening, it was Kelly Khumalo, her mother, her sister Zandile Khumalo, Tumelo Madlala, who is the bestie or was the late Senzo's bestie, Longwetwala, who was Zandile Khumalo's boyfriend at the time, and Ntombi Khumalo, who is the mother of the girls, and also, who else? Thokozi Sitwala, who was also a friend of Senzo and his wife. Now, each one of them obviously experienced the incident differently. Some focused on the firearm, others focused on protecting themselves, others concentrated on Senzo, perhaps. I don't know. Who said they concentrated on Senzo? No one. Okay. Now, all of those details, they matter a lot because eyewitnesses, their memory is really identical from person to person, especially during a violent, fast-moving event. Okay, so we are going to talk about that. Now, one of state's strongest identification is that its most significant identification evidence came from Tumelo Madlala. Madlala told the court that he had an opportunity to observe one of the intruders at close range. Years later in court, he desired to tell us information that he took time to look at Umongani Ndanzi, and he had an opportunity to look at him as one of the men that was involved. For the state, that was a major moment, right? But for someone who is a lawyer and who knows these things, they know that that was bullshit. Now, of course, the state is a direct eyewitness pointing at an accused in an open court carries over obvious significance, ne? Okay, an overpower. I don't know how to put it, but what they were trying to do there, they were trying to say Undanzi is the guy that was inside. Now, what Madlala did there might have played a huge role, but is it going to count when the time comes? That's the question. Is it going to count when the time comes? That's the question. Also, the prosecution argues that Madlala never forgot the face he saw that night. Excuse me? But now, when it comes to Madlala, there was the sketcher, the lady that sketched it, that did the sketch. He gave a different account. He could not remember much. Madlala. He could not. He just remembered he was tall and don. Like giving proper identification, don features. He couldn't do that. So it became very weird when Madlala was giving that account in court. Do you see what is wrong with that identification? And the people are going to be very surprised when the time comes. Then the defense started pulling the thread game because they were like, Australia, So Advocate Charles Mnisi and the other defense lawyers did not simply deny their identification. They questioned whether it could ever be considered reliable. The argument was built around several important facts or points. First, nearly 6 years passed before arrests were made. Human memory naturally have influenced, naturally it fades as time goes by, right? Also, the first thing that is of importance is that Utumelo is doing all of this drama. He forgot that he went in front of, who was this lady now? Amanda Steenkamp. Now, the defense challenged whether it could be properly regarded as reliable evidence. Their argument was based on several important points. Nearly 6 years passed before arrests were made. Human memory can fade over time. Secondly, the accused photographs appeared repeatedly in newspapers, television broadcasts, and online reports after their arrest. Could repeated exposure have influenced later identification? Thirdly, the defense questioned why proper identification procedures either did not take place for some accused person or did not produce positive results before the courtroom identification. And finally, one of the other issues, the defense argued that identifying someone for the first time while they are seated in the dock is inherently problematic because everyone in the courtroom already knows who the accused are. So it doesn't make sense. These are the issues that courts frequently consider when evaluating eyewitnesses' identification evidence. Do you see why I say people? People will be surprised. Now, let's talk about Zandile Khumalo's evidence. Zandile Khumalo also testified that she saw one of the alleged intruders. She described the clothing worn by one attacker and later identified accused number 2 in court as resembling that person. However, under cross-examination, it also emerged that she had previously attended an identification parade shortly after the murder and did not positively identify the person presented there as the attacker. The state says this does not necessarily undermine her later testimony. The defense says it raises serious questions about certainty and reliability. Ultimately, it is for the court to decide what weight, if any, to attach to this evidence. Now, mind you, Zandile is the lady that also made drama there, crying and doing all of that shende while pointing at Ntanzi, asking questions, do you guys know? And the accused laughed because they were like, because they are, what on earth is happening here? So Uzandi, while she was doing all of this drama, she also forgot that previously, shortly after the murder, she is one of the people that pointed at Zamokuhle Mbatha and said he is the killer. And mind you, Zamokuhle Mbatha is a neighbor who used to wash Senzo's car whenever he visits there. Now, all of a sudden, they are pointing at him as the killer. Imagine. Now, who is going to trust anything that comes out of Zandile's mouth? Also, then there was the ID kit sketches. Another important feature of the case involves the ID kit sketches created shortly after the murder. Police work with the witnesses to produce sketches based on the descriptions of the alleged intruders. The prosecution argues that these sketches show the witnesses gave descriptions long before the accused were arrested, which supports the credibility of their accounts. The defense counters that sketches are approximations rather than exact likeness, and that resemblance alone does not prove identity beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, when it comes to these sketches, it was difficult to draw them, and the descriptions that they gave, they are not quite exactly like the accused 1 and 2. They are not, because accused 2 does have pictures that show him how he looked like back then. The ones that they are trying to make him look like he has grown, the pictures from 2013, 2014, they don't show there. They are showing the ones that he has grown, and he's like, show me pictures of that year that were taken that year. When it comes to accused number 3, his situation is very clean. The dreadlocks, his were long. They were very long. And the dreadlocks there, they are like this. The other issue is that when it comes to the identification of accused number 2, because they are saying it's him, he had dreadlocks according to the sketches that were made. Accused number 2 has never had dreadlocks in his life. Do you see now the problems? Nothing is aligning there. There is no alignment whatsoever. Now, you do know that in some courts, especially when generally courts, when they approach eyewitness identification with caution, they always approach all of that. And I think when it comes to this case, Yabo Zandi, an honest witness can still be mistaken. Factors that court often consider, including lightening conditions, distance, duration of observation, stress during the event, whether the witness is focused on the perpetrator or the weapon, the time between the incident and the identification, any exposure to photographs or media before identification. The judge is likely to assess this and other relevant factors when deciding what weight to give the eyewitness evidence. So all of this matters. Do you know why all of this matters? The defense has repeatedly argued that there is no DNA placing the accused inside the house, no fingerprint evidence directly linking them to a crime scene, and no CCTV footage showing them entering the property. Now, there is also for accused number 3, who is said to be one of the people that was inside by the state. There is that evidence, technical evidence from Vodacom that says he was in Johannesburg Central. So there's no way. Now, all of that, it can't be something J. Now, the state, on the other hand, maintains that criminal cases can be proved through a combination of eyewitness testimony and other circumstantial evidence, even in the absence of forensic evidence. That is why the reliability of eyewitness identification has become one of the central battleground on the Senzo Meyiwa trial. When this judgment is eventually delivered, the court will not decide the case based on our public opinion, social media debates, or YouTube commentary from Abononi. It will determine whether the evidence taken as a whole, mind you, taken as a whole, proves the charges beyond reasonable doubt. If the judge finds the eyewitness identification to be reliable and supported by the broader evidence, they may carry a significant weight according to Rata. However, if Judge Rata concludes that the identification are unreliable or affected by the passage of time, prior exposure to media images or weaknesses in the identification process, that too could materially affect the outcome. Whatever the final verdict, the eyewitness evidence will remain one of the defining issues in one of South Africa's most closely watched criminal trials. The court will still deliver its final judgment, but we will be watching and we'll be witnessing all of that. What are your thoughts when it comes to this? Let's talk in the comment section. Drop your thoughts there. Thank you so much. I'll see you on our next video. Bye-bye.